Some women's groups are claiming it's unconstitutional that 33 states still have taxes on feminine products, and Louisiana is one of them. Now they're taking their protest to several states, as well as a petition online to declare feminine products a necessity, not a luxury. Meg Ferris met up with the group when they stopped in New Orleans today.
Thank you for coming by.
The Tax-Free Period campaign out of New York is taking its message of menstrual equality to states that charge sales tax on feminine protection.
People don't realize that their states don't consider tampons and pads and liners necessities, and therefore they're charging sales tax on it, whereas things like donuts and Mardi Gras beads and Viagra are considered necessities in those states and therefore are tax exempt.
People were asked to send a receipt from menstrual products to the State Department of Revenue asking for the tax back. They're hoping states will be inundated with requests.
It's absurd that we have to pay tax on something that we need.
This campaign is actually potentially a prerequisite to our team of lawyers actually initiating lawsuits against the states.
The state sales tax is 4%. When you add the local sales tax to that, that brings everything up to almost 10 cents on every dollar. So that makes this box of 40 tampons an extra 61 cents every time you buy it.
Last legislative session, State Senator J.P. Morrell got a bill through both chambers to exempt feminine protection and baby and adult diapers. But last-minute changes killed it when he says some people were worried about the revenue loss.
The state would lose, for diapers and tampons combined, it would cost the state between $7 and $10 million a year.
But they're planning to try again this spring. Meg Ferris, Eyewitness News.
City Council member Helena Moreno plans to write a city resolution in support of repealing the state tax. And Senator Morrell says a state bill is in the works to allow each city to vote to repeal its local sales tax on feminine products.
Well, the holiday travel season is getting ready to kick into